I'm Blair Best. It's Tuesday here on The Story, and tonight, a man arrested in Happy Valley accused of being a Chinese spy. How the feds caught him and the punishment he could face if convicted. Plus, we get to some of your thoughts on the failure in the state legislature to pass a transportation funding package. Hundreds of ODOT employees are expected to be laid off, and many of you are split on whether or not that's a good thing. But first, Portland Street Response is expanding, but despite City Council's support, the group says it will take them years before they're ready to respond to calls 24/7. And it's our big story tonight.
I was elated. I think it's hard fought for a lot of folks who really wanted this, and it was just really exciting for us to feel like we can actually accomplish what we set out to accomplish.
Well, Portland Street Response is officially expanding yet again. That's the unarmed group responding to nonviolent calls when people are in some sort of crisis. Oftentimes, it's 911 calls involving those who are living on our streets. Last week, Portland City Council passed a resolution to strengthen the program. The resolution formally establishes Portland Street Response as an equal branch of the city's public safety system, ensures members are not used for homeless camp sweeps, commits to expanding the program 24/7 citywide, and creates a community advisory committee. We'll get to some of the back and forth on that in a moment. But let's back up and take a look at how we got here. Portland Street Response launched in 2021 when the city was looking at an alternative to police for mental health and homeless issues. The idea came from a group in Eugene called CAHOOTS, which stands for Crisis Assistance Helping Out on the Streets. CAHOOTS was around for decades until it ended this past April, citing money problems. They started by running first aid tents at Grateful Dead shows in the 1970s and 80s. For 30-plus years, they worked alongside Eugene police. Instead of officers, CAHOOTS sent teams of EMTs and crisis counselors to calls involving addiction or mental health crises. In 2012, the U.S. Department of Justice found Portland police had a pattern of using excessive force against people suffering from mental illness. So, the Bureau started training all its officers in crisis intervention, and they are still operating under that settlement agreement. But that wasn't enough for some groups, who pointed out that police were frequently sent out to nonviolent calls involving homeless people. That brings us to 2019, when Street Roots, a homeless advocacy group and newspaper, pitched the idea of having response teams field these types of calls instead of police. Former City Commissioner Joanne Hardesty signed on to the proposal and got funding for a pilot program. It also got unanimous support from city commissioners at the time. The pilot program was scheduled to launch in spring 2020, but it kept getting pushed back after COVID and other issues delayed the hiring process. It officially launched as part of the Fire Bureau in the Lentz neighborhood in February 2021, with 6 staff members covering 4 square miles, responding to calls Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. The following spring, so May 2022, commissioners unanimously approved funding to expand it 24/7. In 2024, Portland Street Response was moved out of the Fire Bureau and into the city's Community Safety Division. Progress reports showed the program faced significant challenges that called its future into question, including hiring freezes and the resignations of 2 program managers. Despite those concerns, the city's new mayor, Keith Wilson, and 12-person city council so far has expressed support for the program, setting millions aside in this year's budget to expand it, and now passing this latest resolution, formally showing their commitment once again. And that's how we got here. So last year, when Street Response got bumped from the Fire Bureau, the program had 16 open positions. I'm told they filled nearly all of those. Portland City Council has set aside almost $2 million in this year's budget to add 14 more positions. Here's April Roa, one of the program managers.
That means for us that we're going to continue working towards that. We have a 2-year plan to make that 24/7 happen, and this is getting us through those steps to get to that goal.
Okay, so it is still anticipated to take 2 years until they will have enough staff to operate 24/7. Currently, they respond citywide 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. Their next expansion will stretch those hours from 6 a.m. to midnight.
So it's going to be challenging, but I feel like there's a lot of positivity around the program, which also brings a lot of applicants.
And this program, remember, is designed to take the burden off nonviolent crisis situations away from other first responders like Portland Police. April knows that from experience.
I am a former dispatcher, so my experience was I was not always sending the right response to the right two calls. And this was a gap that I saw. That's why I joined Portland Street Response, is to be part of that solution. Having somebody in crisis who's outside yelling for help, and I've had officers that have gone out because we needed to send somebody. There didn't appear to be anything else wrong going on, and they've gone out there and they've tried to connect with folks, and they came back to me saying, like, I felt ill-equipped to be able to handle that, and why did I get assigned to that call?
In a statement, a spokesperson for Portland Police tells me that Portland Street Response is, quote, a valuable piece of Portland's public safety system, and we work with them regularly. We hear on the radio all the time officers asking for PSR, and it gives those officers another option for someone who doesn't need police assistance but needs help in other ways. We're happy to do our part and welcome an expansion of their program. I also caught up with Portland Mayor Keith Wilson. He's optimistic that staff now has the ability to drive people in crisis to shelter or sobering beds. Before, they had to sit and wait with people until a cab got there.
We've normalized leaving people suffering on the street in Portland. We're one of the only cities in the nation that does that. PSR allows us, if a person is down, to rush to that person and help provide life-saving care and support. We should never drive by or walk by somebody on the street. It's been a success, and so expanding success just makes all the smart moves in Portland. Working with counselors, we all, I think, are uniform. PSR is an important resource in our public safety system.
Again, the resolution that passed last week formally establishes the program as an equal partner in the city's public safety system by October. It tells the city's HR department to explore designating PSR staff as first responders, bringing with it the benefits that other first responders receive. We're trying to learn more about that piece and if that means PSR staff could potentially earn a pension if they end up being designated as first responders. We do know the program will get an independent reporting structure and direct dispatch through 911. And a street response advisory committee will begin forming next month. But not everyone inside City Hall was for this latest move. 2 city councilors voted against it. Olivia Clark, who represents District 4, most everything west of the Willamette River, was one of them.
I really felt, Blair, that it was just premature. If they'd brought it back in 6 months or in a year, where we had just more time, more experience under our belt, that would have been great. It's like putting fertilizer on a seedling without any roots, and not necessarily a good thing. That we need to reestablish those roots really firmly in Portland Street Response before we go to 24/7 or make it an independent bureau.
And Councilor Clark also has concerns around that advisory committee meant to provide recommendations for the program's future. She said no money was set aside for it.
If you're going to stop, have to appoint a committee, find the people, go through civic life, another department, another bureau at City Hall, why would you do that? I don't know that we need that kind of a thing, and it just seems like it would slow the process.
Councilor Dan Ryan, who represents District 2, North and Northeast Portland, also voted against the resolution. He was traveling today, but sent us a statement saying in part, I will move forward a resolution that calls for PSR leadership to provide a 3-year, goal-focused strategic plan coordinated across public safety bureaus, including police, fire, and 911, and the mayor's Portland Solutions teams that address homeless issues. He went on, saying, I voted no to Councilor Canal's top-down political resolution because it adds more administrative burdens and unfunded expenses to a now stabilizing, developing program. It's time we focus on outcomes for Portlanders. So, what do you think about the expansion of Portland Street Response? Do you think it's the right move? Why or why not? Email us the story at kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail 503-226-5090. Well, turning now to an update on a tiny home village for homeless people in Southwest Portland. Starting today, a new group is running the Multnomah Safe Rest Village. Okay, why are we telling you this? Well, when rumors swirled back in April that the California-based group Urban Alchemy was coming in to take over operations from the Portland-based nonprofit Sunstone Way, those at Sunstone Way were afraid 30 staff members were going to lose their jobs because of it. Here's what the head of that nonprofit told me back then.
We were shocked, obviously extremely disappointed. To learn that very suddenly we won't be operating this village is just really confusing and upsetting, especially to not be given any kind of specific reason for that.
Sunstone Way ran the Multnomah Safe Rest Village since 2022, building relationships with the homeless people there, working to get them into housing, and also building relationships with the surrounding neighborhood, one that once protested the site. But now Urban Alchemy is in charge there, and here's why. Sunstone Way was in contract with Multnomah County starting July 1st, so today, the city of Portland took over that contract, and the city opened an application process to find the highest scoring provider. That turned out to be Urban Alchemy, not Sunstone Way. But the good news, I'm told, Sunstone Way staff were not laid off, simply relocated into the other 6 shelters they run in the Portland metro area. A city spokesperson says Sunstone Way will continue to play a vital role in Portland's shelter system, operating the city's 2 culturally specific shelter sites, Southwest Nato Village and Weidler Village, where they will continue to provide tailored shelter services to BIPOC and LGBTQIA+ community members. Well, a new performing arts center in downtown Portland is closer to becoming a reality. Portland State University got more than $137 million from the state legislature to put towards building a new theater. As part of Senate Bill 5505, lawmakers agreed to provide $85 million in state bonds to build a 1,200-seat theater and academic spaces, and $52 million for on-site parking. Well, last year, Portland City Council approved a plan to look into building a new performing arts center on Southwest 3rd and Lincoln. The idea is that when the PSU Center is finished, the Keller Auditorium, just 6 blocks away, will be renovated. And Portland may eventually have 2 Broadway venues. The state and the city are hoping the new performing arts center will be another place to help revitalize downtown Portland.
We've talked a lot about bringing economic incentives and activity and infusing arts and culture into our everyday lives. And I think that the cultural hub that both this performing arts center could provide is going to be absolutely outstanding.
Portland Mayor Keith Wilson released a statement saying the state's investment in Portland State University represents a profound commitment to the importance of the arts in bringing together community and activating Portland's downtown core. He went on to say that the city will now start on a market feasibility study to see if the city can even sustain 2 performing arts centers. PSU says along with the state money, they have another $10 million in philanthropic pledges for the project. Well, a bill that lowers the bar for forced mental health treatment cleared the legislature. House Bill 2005 allows judges to consider past or future behavior in a civil commitment hearing as they assess whether someone is dangerous to themselves or others because of their mental illness. It includes time limits on how long someone accused of a crime can be held in treatment, changes the rules around who can trigger a civil commitment hearing, and expands areas where residential treatment facilities can be built. Lawmakers who supported the bill said it was important that treatment facilities be located close to neighborhoods so it's easier for people to get to treatment in their own community. Senator Floyd Przansky, a Eugene Democrat who carried the bill, says he made sure local government will still have rights and control when it comes to mental health facilities, like the one in Lane County that's in the works.
And even though that facility will be in my district, I will be voting yes on this measure because I know not only is it the right thing for the state, it's also within my community to be certain that we have the ability to provide services outside of the state hospital in a local setting that will be much more effective for these individuals. This is the way that we have to do it. Even though it may be close in my backyard, I will accept it.
Well, the bill passed the House Friday, the last day of the session, and the Senate the day before. It now awaits the governor's signature. And while we're on the topic of the Oregon legislature, let's get to some of your thoughts on our big story last night, detailing the failure of the big transportation funding package. Because lawmakers failed to fund ODOT, at least for the next 2 years, that is, the agency and the governor say that 600 to 700 employees will be laid off this month, one of the largest, if not the largest, state layoffs in Oregon history. The governor could call lawmakers back for a special session to get something done for transportation to potentially save some of those jobs, but so far, she has not done that. In the meantime, we got a good mix of reaction from you. Bill wrote to us saying, ludicrous. This part-time legislature has failed. Fire them all, both sides. Governor Kotek, call them back or fire them all. Okay, Allison chimed in saying, as a taxpayer, I am totally in shock that our elected lawmakers cannot come together long enough to pass this. How dare they let this bill fail and have this unbelievable 600 to 700 employee layoff occur? Not only will this layoff greatly affect these dedicated employees who will no longer have their income, but the entire state will be greatly impacted by this. And here's what Britt wrote. As a rider of public transportation, I feel very let down. While there may be financial benefits to this, layoffs of ODOT employees will harm the city. Frankly, I don't see people willing to work together for us. Interesting aspect is I see the same people who voted against this will eventually deal with the same outcomes. But we did hear from many of you regarding the ODOT layoffs who told us it's about time.
What I have seen historically through Oregon and the Department of Transportation is we have too many employees there already. It is top heavy, and no matter how much money the state of Oregon gives the Department of Transportation, they never seem to get the work done. Every year they've got a different excuse, and all they want is more money. So I think we're to a point that the legislature did what was correct this time. I just think that Oregon is taxing ourselves to death.
Don wrote in saying, I'm sorry for the employees that will be laid off if the layoffs really happen. ODOT needs streamlining. Voters have erred, in my opinion, by voting one-party rule for so long that so many administrators are locked into jobs and they have no checks on them. Their jobs are so secure that they do not answer to anybody. And we'll end on this one from John. A day of reckoning was inevitable. Politicians and agency bureaucrats have gotten so used to voters that were willing to provide approval for raising taxes to offset the out-of-control spending they believed there would be no limit on their bad management. Now it's time to wake up. Well, Oregon's gas tax is not increasing for now, but today the gas tax in Washington ticked up by 6 cents. Thanks to a transportation funding law in the Evergreen state. It's the first increase to that tax in 9 years, going from 49 cents a gallon yesterday to 55 cents today.
That's a lot, and it's definitely going to impact how often I fill up my car, probably how many trips I take throughout the summer, and which vehicle we decide to take for sure.
I got buddies down south that are only paying like $2.50, $3. So obviously something, there's a vast discrepancy between $3 and $4.50, $4.60, and now another 6 cents. It's going to be Europe in no time. You're going to have to be a baller just to drive.
Oregon's statewide gas tax, for what it's worth, is 40 cents a gallon. California, Washington, and Oregon have the highest average gas prices in the continental U.S. According to AAA, Washington's average gallon of gas costs $4.42. Only Hawaii and California are more expensive on average. Washington's transportation funding package is estimated to raise more than $1 billion over the next 6 years. And the gas tax hike today will not be the last. The bill that raised it also set an annual 2% inflation adjustment to the tax, which begins a year from today. Well, coming up next on the story, details from court documents after federal agents arrested a man in Happy Valley, accusing him of being a spy for the Chinese government. That's next when the story returns. To the city of Happy Valley now, where just a few days ago, a Chinese national was arrested by federal agents accused of being a spy for the Chinese government. On Friday, the 38-year-old, a legal permanent resident in the U.S., was arrested and charged with spying on behalf of China's main foreign intelligence service, the Ministry of State Security, or MSS. The feds accuse him and another man of coordinating a dead drop of at least $10,000 in cash, paying for information relating to U.S. national security, as well as gathering intel on U.S. Navy service members and bases. Feds even allege that he helped with trying to recruit people within the U.S. military as potential MSS assets. Court documents say he was recruited as a spy around 2021, with that cash dead drop happening in California early the next year. The feds say after that, he was told to visit a U.S. naval installation in Washington state and a Navy recruitment center in California. Court documents say at that recruitment center, he took pictures of a bulletin board that had names, programs, and hometowns of recent recruits, the majority of whom listed their hometown as China. He allegedly sent that information to the MSS and got instructions on what to say to potential recruits regarding payment by the MSS to act as a spy. But the feds say he went even further, contacting a Navy employee over social media and arranging a tour of the USS Abraham Lincoln this year, then giving information about that employee to the MSS. He apparently traveled to China to meet with MSS intelligence officers as recently as March. FBI Director Kash Patel said in a statement the Chinese Communist Party thought they were getting away with their scheme to operate on U.S. soil, utilizing spycraft like dead drops to pay their sources. This case was a complex, coordinated effort and is an example of outstanding counterintelligence work done by FBI San Francisco, Portland, Houston, San Diego, and the Counterintelligence Division. Now, if convicted of being an agent for a foreign government, the man faces a fine of up to $250,000 and up to 10 years in prison. Stay with us. We're back right after this. Well, that is the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. In the meantime, have a great Tuesday night. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.